Evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Beard Blather 244, a tsunami of garbage, which of course some of you were already expecting. 3 days, mind you, 3 days. That's all that's left when this ridiculous election season, the very existence of which is a tribute to the Democratic Party's dedication to fraud. One person, one vote, one day, in person, in secret. What was once understood as the principles of clean and fair elections has been replaced by superstitions and myths as cover for abusive and illegal behavior. Now we have to watch every polling station as if it were Louisiana in times of the kingfish. The Democrat cesspools of the 1920s and 1930s taking over the whole country. We'll clean up, survive, and thrive. In the meantime, let's hope that a tsunami of garbage inspired by the hateful, arrogant words of a contemptuous mental midget washes the Fascist Democrat Party off of DC and sends Biden, Harris, and their coterie of misfits back to the hole they should have never sprung from. In 3 days, save America from the clutches of retarded lowlifes and put these fascists out. And watch every vote. And every vote count, as if your life depended on it. Or it may well do. You don't believe me? Ask peanuts. And with that, this is Saul Montes Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information from Virginia, about halfway between Salem, Virginia, and Greensboro, North Carolina, which were the two stops of the Duracell bunny today. So I missed both because I had a lot of work in my garden. There's more than one garden to take care of. And right there, right next to me, looking bewildered and wondering, like, what the fuck is this guy talking about, is Thomas Victor, the only living expert in World War I flamethrowers from Californication. It's not Mexifornia anymore, it's Californication because the government fornicates each and every one of its citizens every day, 3 times a day. Thomas, I hope you're sitting down and not exposing your ass to the rapaciousness of Governor Gruesome.
Well, since we're talking about California, I bought a photograph from a dealer in California from eBay, and this is what arrived. He folded it in half.
Oh, what a moron.
To put it in the envelope.
He actually did, the moron.
Yep, and you can see that, let's see, it's wrinkled. It looks like he crumpled it up with his hands and stuffed it in. So I was able to...
And he used the photo side on the outside.
On the outside, yeah.
So as to increase the damage.
What I did was I scanned it with a weight on top of it, and I'll be able to salvage it. But for the first time in my life, I'm going to give an eBay reviewer a negative review, because there's literally no reason in the world to fold a photograph in half and then stick it in an envelope. But he's a Californian, so the state here. My brother had something similar happen. He ordered an original photo, and the guy crapped it up so that the emulsion was flaking off. And my brother contacted him, and the guy said, "All I'm hearing is a lot of boo-hoo." It's like, oh my God. And you're trying to make a living selling stuff with that attitude? So
I knew a guy once in Solon, Maine. Solon, Maine is one of those towns that you're likely never to discover. It's out in the middle of the fucking boondocks, somewhere between Mexico, Maine. There is a Mexico in Maine, and Naples on the lake, and out in the middle of nowhere. In the winter is like, geez, northern Greenland. And this guy lived there in a Victorian house that had seen much better days a century ago. You know when the house is all settled in funny ways,
Mm.
so that every floor is like these or these, and he lived there with a lab that was one of the weirdest dogs I've ever encountered, and he lived off buying and selling watches on eBay.
Wow.
He literally would sell on eBay the watches he bought on eBay
Oh yeah, they do that all the time.
and make enough of a difference to make a living in the woods.
Mm.
The guy had the worst disposition of any person alive or dead since Adam got fooled by Eve and the snake. An asshole, major time. And yet he made a living on eBay being an asshole.
Yeah, the Germans, German dealers, a hell of a lot of them will not ship to the United States because they don't like Americans. And so I have a German buyer who buys stuff for me, and then he charges these people who don't ship to the United States. A lot of them will ship only to either Europe or Germany.
Mm.
So they get a fraction of what this thing is worth. And I have a German buyer who will buy them for me, and then he'll list them. He's a brilliant man. He'll list it, and the scan will just show like a boot. And then he'll have the buy it now price that he wants me to buy it for. So, nobody's going to buy a photo of a boot. And so I'm able to not run afoul of eBay's terms of use, and I'm able to get something that's very valuable. And the idiot who refuses to sell to Americans because he hates Americans, he just lost out on I don't know, sometimes up to 10 times more than he would have than he sold it for to my German buyer. So this thing where, I mean, especially now in the current age we're at, I saw an imam interviewed. He was from Iraq, and he was in Dearborn, I suppose, and spoke with a very thick accent, and was talking about the borders, was talking about the economy, was talking about, didn't say a word about the Israel-Gaza war, but he as an American, he was horrified at what was going on. So he and his congregants were going to vote for Trump. And then I saw a bunch of Somalis. There was a press conference today where Somali civic leaders, were all going for Trump, and they were urging their fellow Somali Americans to vote for Trump. And all they were talking about was the border, the economy, and crime. And
oh my, one would think they live in this country after all.
Well, this is the thing that Kamala is running as if all she has to say to fellow Americans are, a few buzzwords. He's a racist, and then all these
a Nazi, you're a Nazi, Sina Nazi.
All say, "Oh, I can't vote for Trump because he hates Muslims." She's brought back the canard that Trump prevented Muslims from immigrating to the country. And
the Muslim ban. They're talking about the Muslim ban again.
Exactly.
Which it included Venezuela, as you know. Venezuela is a Muslim caliphate.
Well, it included several countries, other
Yeah,
than
North Korea.
exactly. And when you have a former Iraqi, now an American, who is saying, he said that he was shocked to see that there were at least 3 assassination attempts on Trump in 3 months. And he said, this is America. What's happened to our country? And this is an American. Doesn't matter that he speaks with a thick accent or that he's a Muslim imam. He's an
Well,
American.
George Washington had a funny accent.
Well, they all did. I mean, if we saw the founding fathers, if we were able to use a time machine to bring them into this era and have them speak to us, we would find most of them incomprehensible.
Yeah.
They would probably sound more British than anything.
Yeah, from Yorkshire and East Anglia.
Exactly. So it's we were down to what, 3 days from the election, and every single day the Democrats are grinding out another catastrophe, whether it's Mark Cuban saying that Trump surrounds himself with stupid stupid women.
Yeah.
Or
by the way, did you see that he was fired by the Kakala campaign?
Yeah.
Isn't this absolutely gorgeous?
Well, okay, the big flop now, they said that they played a clip of Trump saying that he was going to protect women no matter what they say about it. And the they he was speaking about was his campaign advisors, not women.
Yeah.
So it was a complete fabrication that, what the hell is it? We were just talking about him a couple of weeks ago, Jamie Raskin.
Oh, God, that imbecile, yes.
Jamie Raskin said it was a lie. Jake Tapper said it was a lie. I mean, apparently there's an X account that's run by the Harris campaign, and it's just puking out this, these lies and hoaxes, and the community notes and the responses. I mean, this is having no effect, or if anything, it's having the opposite effect. What
do you think that at this stage of the soiree, there's absolutely anything that the Kakala campaign can say? Did you see Trump? He just said that. Fill in with the obscenity of your choice, and anybody will give a shit.
No, I mean, I saw interviews with Puerto Ricans on the street. Are you offended? And my favorite was a young woman who just said no, and that was her only response.
Yeah,
See,
good. I'll tell you more. I think we discussed this on the phone, but not with the folks out there. I have a shit ton of relatives in Puerto Rico. My wife's, for the most part, but a few of mine. And I lived there for a while. I have a shit ton of friends. They got the joke. They were cracking up about it because
correct.
they're all very much aware that Puerto Rico for the past 3 years has been having a serious garbage crisis. They were supposed to build incinerators 5 years ago. They didn't. The Democrats never see anything through. And now, the dumps are filled to capacity. They don't know what the crap to do with the garbage anymore. It's overflowing. And Puerto Ricans, who are people with a great sense of humor, are the first ones to make all kinds of jokes about how they're going to be buried in garbage.
Well, also the
people who didn't get the joke were the people in the Madison Square Garden because they didn't know shit from Shinola about Puerto Rico, and the Democrats because they were too busy looking for something to be offended by.
Well, the joke wasn't about Puerto Rico. The joke was about claim that there are multiple giant floating islands of garbage out in the oceans. And so he said, there's a giant floating garbage island of garbage out in the ocean. It's called Puerto Rico. So the Puerto Rico is the punchline, but it's not the topic of the joke. And
right.
Everybody with a brain understood that. I don't know. I mean, what is the Puerto Rican vote anyway? I mean, are Democrats expecting Puerto Rico?
I'm afraid that the Democrats are now going to get all of the Puerto Rican electors.
And are the Democrats, well, also, I mean, are the Puerto Ricans going to flip entire states now?
Well, let me see. There are 1 million Puerto Ricans in New York. 1 million Puerto Ricans in New York. That is versus 330,000 in San Juan.
Yeah. No, I mean, the whole thing is just ridiculous. And
1 million. Now, do you think that if all of them vote Democrat now, as if they hadn't before, that would change anything in New York?
No, I mean, Trump.
It's all bullshit.
Trump is leading in the swing states and multiple other states. I mean, Minnesota is a toss-up, for God's sake. So, Trump's going to do fine on election day. They're claiming that the two are neck and neck. That's not true. The Trump is leading in the real Real Clear Politics.
Real Clear Politics. Yeah. And he's I mean, we have to explain it to folks. Neither myself nor Thomas here give a flying crap about polls. They're all over the map. They have been consistently wrong. If anything, they have systematically underestimated Trump for the past 8 years. So if one of those polls tells me that they're neck and neck, I imagine that Trump is like 5 points ahead, 6 points ahead.
Or in some cases, I mean, they're predicting he's going to take, I think it's Pennsylvania of all places. Like, he's 8 points ahead, and it's like we basically don't know the margin by which Trump is going to win. But I am very confident saying he's going to win, and it's not complacency. I'm going to go vote. I'll take my. In California, we all get our mail-in ballots.
Whether you ask for it or not.
And so I'm going to take this. Every election, I take my unopened ballot and hand it in, and then I vote. California has this weird voting machine where you take a piece of paper and you stick it in, and then you use screens to touch. And then it prints out this piece of paper, and you hold it and you look it over, and then you shove it back in, and then it says you're counted. So it's a bizarre system. It's unnecessary. California used to have paper ballots that you had this little marker that you stuck in these holes, and you just went dip, 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 dip. But they got rid of it for this much more expensive system that takes much more time to vote now.
There is a Democrat with a new vacation home because of that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, it's, I don't know. I'm not feeling anxious about this election. But I don't feel anxious about very many things anymore. I'm able to accept things without, I told you I watch a lot of Korean TV shows. They're limited series, mini series, I guess you could call them. And I'm fascinated by how emotional the people are over a breakup in a relationship, that sort of thing. Because the way I look at it, if you're with somebody and she says, I want to break up with you, don't argue with her. You can't talk her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. You can't talk her back in. Please don't leave me. Well, but she doesn't like you anymore. She doesn't have feelings for you anymore. Why would you want to be attached to this person?
Because you are too accustomed to that particular booty call.
I don't know. The last relationship I had, she threw me out, and my brother came to San Francisco and helped me load up all my stuff. And I mean, it was over. You know, there was no chance of talking about it. She didn't want to talk about it. She just wanted me out. And, you know, so after a few attempts
What the hell did you do?
well,
Oh, I know. She looked at you and said, "Do you notice any change in me?"
well, what actually happened,
And instead of saying your hair looks wonderful, you said you got two pimples on your nose.
no, I learned a long time ago. Well, she wasn't the type to say, "Do these pants make my ass look fat" or anything. But what was the deal is that she was under pressure. She was 3/4 Chinese and 1/4 Mexican, and she was under pressure from her parents to get married and give them grandkids. And she had always told me that she didn't want children. And then suddenly one day it was, well, you don't make enough money, so we have to break up, and that's that. And she was married in record time after that and pushed out 2 kids. And you know, is we got into contact 20 years after we'd broken up. And she got everything she wanted, and it reminded me of that old curse: beware what you wish for, because you just might get it.
You might get it. Yep.
So it was really, I mean, she was a really artistic person. She was a multi-instrumentalist musician, and now she's just, I mean, her poor kids are disasters, and the husband runs the show. And you know, she told me all these terrible things, not abuse or anything, but just, you know, she no longer plays any instruments. She no longer goes to concerts. She doesn't do anything. And it's like, well, it was nice talking to you. I don't know. It was just very strange. But when we were at the breakup point, it was like, she wants to be gone. I mean, I don't have a choice in the matter, you know?
No. Listen, in relationships, I never understood people who latch on and want to maintain relationships way past the shelf life. If any one person participating in a relationship, assuming we are talking about a traditional couple, I understand there are some with polyamorous couples where it's an entirely different formula. But if any one person doesn't like it anymore, it's over, baby.
Yeah. And
There is no forcing it.
that's why when in 2020, when 7 states stopped counting for the night, I wrote off the election. I knew it was going to be stolen at that point.
Yeah.
And
we were on the air and we said it when the water main broke.
Yep.
Turns out there was no water main. Nothing broke. The only thing that broke was the law.
And as you and I were discussing yesterday, the Republicans are fighting back before the election. They're not waiting for the election.
Finally, yes.
Yeah. And our side is getting a lot of really great rulings from the Supreme Court. Stuff has already been taken to the Supreme Court in record time, and they're ruling the way they should rule. So the people who say don't bother voting, they're just going to cheat anyway, they can't. Not the way they did in 2020. It's not possible. And
no, No, it's two things that people have a little bit of a problem separating. Will there be cheating? You
Yeah.
bet your sweet ass there will be. There has been a measure of cheating on every single freaking election since the 18th century. All of them. Sometimes more grotesquely than others. Certainly, 1876 is an example. But I believe that John Quincy Adams protested that his reelection was stolen, and he actually came back for more.
Mhm.
It is a fact of life, and it is a feature of elections that some people cheat. Live with it. Most of the time, it's not enough to overturn results, and the Electoral College is one of the great tools we have to ensure that. 4 years ago, we had the perfect storm. On the shoulders of COVID, these people pulled one of the biggest cons in the history of elections. They modified laws, they ignored laws, always based on the expediency and necessity. We need to do it this way because mushu achu. So the state law forbids harvesting. Well, but we're going to make an exemption because mushu achu. The state constitution does not allow for absentee ballots without cause. Well, we're going to allow it this time because mushu achu. And we had a case where something happened in the US that I had never seen before. Uh, Districts with 95% voter participation in the US? What the crap are they talking about? The average is somewhere around 55.
And the reason that too many Americans accepted this and politicians accepted this was January 6th. January 6th
Yes,
was another element of the perfect storm. You still hear people
yes.
call Trump an insurrectionist. It wasn't an
No,
insurrection. Um,
no.
he
And
was,
it wasn't Trump driving it.
and it wasn't
And
driving it. And I mean, the nitwits who went. I remember you did a
I did a live broadcast on that afternoon,
yeah, and yeah, I
and
remember.
I was fucking furious.
Oh yeah, I remember that. And what people either forgot or don't know, there were enough members of Congress to question the results of
Yes.
the election. But after the idiots ran inside the Capitol building, and after they were flushed out, it was unanimous. All those
Yeah.
congressmen not be seen as being tied to the idiots who came into the Capitol building.
Bingo.
So
There is a human condition effect. Uh, I remember in my broadcast I said Congress is going to reconvene as soon as they can,
mhm,
and they're going to ram this through and go home.
yeah, and that's what happened.
And this is it. And nobody wants to hear about objections anymore.
No,
And this is what the so-called insurrectionists, the rioters, and by the way, always the same fucking assholes, the Q-tards, the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys, little tiny friggin' organizations that the total number of these people were maybe a couple of hundred that created this ruckus.
we're
And
now
as usual, they buried Trump in it.
we're talking about American Nazis again. There's about 300 in the whole United
Yeah.
States. Whenever you see American Nazis marching, there's about 30 of them, and those 30 came from 30 different states.
Yeah, they had to fly them around.
Exactly. So, but okay, with the lies that become what Norman Mailer called factoids, that since they've appeared in print, so they must be real. One was that AOC was hiding from the insurrectionists who were looking for her. She was nowhere near the Capitol building.
No, she was in the office building, and I heard her last week. She was lying through her teeth again.
Right.
How she feared for her life. What the crap are you talking about, you stupid cow? She was like 20 fucking blocks away.
And the second lie is that Marjorie Taylor Greene was out there waving the troops on. Marjorie Taylor Greene was hiding under a desk, and she was one of the loudest voices against this sort of action because she knew what the response was going to be.
Yeah.
We can't excuse the actions of the insurrectionists, but it was a setup. The insurrectionists,
absolutely,
of the rioters, but it was a setup. They were basically allowed into the Capitol building so that everyone could say, "Oh my God, insurrection, insurrection," and they fell right into the trap. They were idiots.
I said on January 6th, I said when the dust clears, somebody's going to have to ask some serious questions of Nancy Pelosi.
And
ever since 9/11, there are contingency plans for extreme events in the Capitol, and every 6 months they go through, drills, and they drill evacuations, they drill an attack by a mob. There were 3,500 Capitol Police. Only 119 were deployed.
Yeah,
about 300 were held back. The rest were at home.
And the national
none of the plans were put into effect. The chief of the Capitol Police was told to stand down. Pelosi refused the National Guard forces that were made available to Congress days before, up to 10,000. And then they said that Trump never offered them.
Well, Pelosi is the scorpion who stings the frog, giving it a ride over the river on its back, because that's what scorpions do. The people who I'm upset with are the Republicans, because as soon as this thing happened, the Republicans washed their hands of Trump. And it's the same thing. It's like people you hear today, it's a consensus that George W. Bush lied us into war. The only reason people say that is because Bush very pig-headedly and pathologically refused to defend himself. And you just said a minute ago that Pelosi will have to answer questions. Nobody ever asked those questions.
Nobody asked those questions.
And her own daughter caught Pelosi on film, on phone, talking to someone saying, "This is all my fault. I take."
And it was.
And
now I don't want to go as far as to say she did it on purpose, because I've learned a long time ago never to underestimate incompetence.
And
cretinism.
Hanlon's razor, never attribute to malice what can be adequately explained by stupidity.
Yes. And in this case, her own renowned idiocy is more than enough. I do believe that she didn't want the National Guard around because of the optics, because it would look like a military takeover. I know, it sounds stupid. Well, she is stupid. I don't think that they thought ahead of time we're going to do this and we're going to frame Trump. I do think that when things flew off their handle, the first thing they did is, holy shit, what do we do now? Blame Trump.
Yeah. And
they run with it.
Okay, Trump, this time around, it's a different Trump. It's a different set of electoral circumstances. Twitter, ex-Twitter has turned out to be a major player in all of this. So the circumstances bear no resemblance to 2020. Also, we have the very helpful sitting president going out there calling, Trump supporters garbage. We have almost every day some major ranking Democrat saying something outlandishly stupid that is costing them support. Yeah, I mean, the image of Trump driving a garbage truck and wearing a garbage vest, that's indelible. No one will ever forget that. Trump working at McDonald's because Kamala lied and said that she worked at McDonald's. So the Democrats have been Trump's best allies in this election season. But, there are people, who have to be written off. And, this is, I watched a video put out by a black woman who supports Trump, who was having a lunch. She's having coffee with her friends somewhere in deep blue Virginia. And the white woman at the table next to them got up and got down into her face and demanded to know why she was going to vote for Trump. And the latter half of the confrontation was caught on video. And they didn't eject the white woman. They just they moved her, and then she came all the way across the coffee shop again to get down in the face of the black woman again. And those are the sort of people, the sort of Americans that have to be completely written off because they're insane.
They're totally insane. I saw that thing. I didn't like either one, frankly. But this woman who and I've encountered the type, the arrogance, the unbounded arrogance of the stupid cow who feels compelled to interrupt somebody else she overheard and gets upset when essentially told to go mind her own business. We have too many of those.
I think the most satisfying video I ever saw along those lines was filmed by a man who was on an airliner, and he was wearing his MAGA hat, and the elderly woman sitting next to him demanded that he take off his hat because she found it offensive, and he refused. Yeah. So she started putting up a fuss, and she called a stewardess over, and she demanded that this man be moved or taken off the plane. And instead, they told her she now had to get off the plane.
Yeah.
So she started going into this long, her voice started quavering, and she, my mother's very ill, and
I give a shit.
And finally, the captain comes out, and he says, "You have to get off the plane." And her husband, who's been sitting there silent the whole time, he says, "How about if she settles down for the rest of the flight? Would that work?" Mm-hmm. And they say, no, you have to get off. So she starts to gather her stuff, and as he's leaving, she starts to do something to the MAGA guy, and they grab her, they move her off, and the plane breaks into applause. And think about that.
Now, can you imagine being married to that shrew?
Well, this is why he only said one thing. He was used to this. Well, he lives with it every day. So
I'm surprised he's still there.
Well, when it comes to leftist leftist women, white leftist women are the most horrific of the unreasonable.
Yeah.
But I did see a very satisfying set of videos. It was three videos. It was a young woman she was probably of something like Malaysian extract. She wasn't Far East Asian, but slightly closer in. And she was going on this anti-white racist rant about the claim that all lives matter, and that the sheer caucasity of this, and blah 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 blah.
Imagine that.
And in the next video, she's sobbing because she got fired. She got fired from a job that she'd worked really hard to get, and she couldn't believe that this had happened to her. And then she made a third video where she's now lying in bed and she's crying even harder. And she's talking about how the Trump supporters just they're not leaving her alone.
Huh.
It's like, honey baby, you made a racist, you made one of the most grotesquely racist videos I've ever seen, with this sassy "come and get me, motherfuckers." And they did. What did you think was going to happen? Your company's not going to want you there. All they did was they forwarded a video that she had posted herself. They forwarded it to the company and said, "Did you know that one of your employees is making videos like this?" And they said, we can't have this person here. And then she cries. She blames other people. It's very satisfying. I enjoyed it very much.
Schadenfreude exists, and I strongly recommend it.
Yeah.
Somebody comes up to me and says, "I don't like your hat." Well, I don't like your face. Your hat offends me. Your face offends me.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what. The moment you take off your face, I'll take off my hat, and we'll call it even. How about that? I actually got into trouble. I told you once. I was spared. I did something very stupid, and I was saved fortuitously by the wife of a cousin who happened on the scene, and her reaction saved my life, literally. But my reaction was then, and as it would be now, leave me the fuck alone.
Mm-hmm.
You find my hat offensive? Avert your eyes. I find your very existence offensive. And here we are. And what is it with these arrogant assholes who think that whatever their vision of the world is, you have to abide by it, by hook or by crook? What gives them the right?
Well, it's entitlement, but it's also obliviousness, and it's a sense of moral justification that they believe that Trump supporters are illegitimate, and you hear all these celebrities now, they're making last minute ads. Vote for Kamala because Trump is a threat.
Yeah.
To
and they're getting hefty paychecks for this too.
Oh, of course, but they're saying that Trump is an existential threat to the country, and there are plenty of people who believe that. I don't. There's plenty of actors who believe that, but there's also plenty of actors who are just taking the $2 million and
jeez, more of the latter.
Exactly. And the people who confront others at restaurants and on airliners about their shirts or their hats or whatever, I mean, these are mentally ill people. It's not going to hurt you to have a guy wearing a MAGA hat sitting next to you on a flight. Not if you're normal. We have the right to support whoever we want in this country. that I mean, you could vote for whoever you want. You can write in Mickey Mouse on the ballot if you want.
Don't tempt me.
Well, it's these people are so righteous, and it's a cringing, it's an eerie. They're not brave. They're like, have you heard of this guy named Johnny Somali? Johnny Somali is a live streamer who goes to East Asian countries to offend the citizens. He got thrown in jail in Japan and was looking at, I don't know, 13 months in jail, and then they let him go. So then he went to Korea, and the Koreans had built a life-size statue to commemorate the Korean comfort women who were kidnapped by the Japanese. So Johnny Somali made a video where he kissed it, he twerked against it, he took off his shirt and rubbed oil all over his chest and rubbed himself against the statue. And now Johnny Somali, everywhere he goes in Korea, he's physically assaulted because Koreans are not Japanese. Koreans, every Korean male above the age of 18 has seen military service where he was trained in martial arts. And so they're beating the absolute hell out of him. And the police
He should
rescued
be
him.
sentenced to live in Korea for the rest of his life.
Well, they've confiscated his passport. He was making a run out of the country, and they've confiscated his passport. He's been charged with assault and possession and possession of narcotics. He went to in Korean convenience stores you can buy like cup noodle or something, and or Insta ramen, and there's a little table where you can sit there and eat it.
Yeah.
So he bought a
You
bottle.
just had hot water, mix it, and eat it.
Right. So he opened a bottle of booze and started drinking it, hard liquor. Then he just dumped his noodles all over the store and was throwing noodles out the door at people, at passersby. He's that sort of guy. He's doing anything to get attention. And he's picked the wrong country. I mean, he's been assaulted multiple times, and the last time he was assaulted, the guy rang his bell so hard that he was like a fighter. You know, when you see a punch drunk boxer, that's what he's like. And so the story was that the police had to rescue him. No, the police put him in the car and took him to the nearest station where they confiscated his passport. And now he's looking at several years in prison in Korea. But you know, he's broadcasting that all Asians need to be exterminated, you know, that sort of thing. I mean, good luck.
What a genius.
You're going to find out that Korea is not the United States.
No.
But you know, we're living in this era of just complete like chaos, on a micro and macro level. It's like individuals are losing their marbles.
You know, if it was just the U.S., I would be worried, but it isn't. So I'm literally very fucking worried, because this kind of idiocy is universal now.
Well, today, the Israelis carried out an amphibious assault on northern Lebanon
in Tripoli,
and it was a very successful.
In Tripoli, it was very successful. They nabbed this son of a bitch, who was both one of the higher ups of the Hezbollah Navy and a merchant marine officer in Lebanon's merchant marine. I don't know if I'm saying that correct, but Yeah, he was nabbed in a nice operation in almost the northernmost city in Lebanon.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, so much for Hezbollah being the regional force that
they're
who was
toast.
some idiot American said they'd become. It was Reuters or something. Yeah, Reuters. Reuters.
Reuters, AP used to.
Yeah, when Nasrallah was croaked, they praised his bringing Hezbollah up to being a regional force, and it's like,
A regional force for peace.
well,
That was the Associated Press.
a regional force that has no ability to stop the Israelis from doing whatever they want. That's not a
Well,
regional force.
no, and that applies to Iran as well. But Hezbollah was supposed to be this strong army uh, with 150,000 missiles, and
Yeah,
the
so
Israelis.
that's the sword of Damocles that's hanging over the Israelis'
Yes,
head. Hezbollah's
and
missile arsenal.
and Netanyahu went, oh, beep beep, and half their officers died with their balls around their necks.
Yeah,
Uh, Israel has proven in the past few months that everything you and I knew and have been preaching for the past 7 years about the uh, worthlessness of our enemies was true.
mm-hmm.
Hamas is no more. Yeah, sure, they're a bunch of assholes. They're going to be rounded up soon enough. Same thing with Hezbollah. And the only reason we still have Iran is because Iran's partners in the White House and the Department of Defense are too busy running defense for them. But
Yeah,
if it were
and
up to Israel, the freaking Khamenei would be already croaked.
well, Trump is lucky because Gaza is over and done with. Um, if and when the Israelis go after the Iranian mullahs, not a single American Muslim is going to raise a shout of protest against it. They're
No.
going to be all for it because
And by the way, if any does, round them up and deport their asses over to Iran.
yeah, I mean it's
We can have support for the enemy within our borders. Period.
well we still have these sort of de rigueur protests that they're so. I mean, nobody even reports on them anymore. They're still happening, but
Yeah. And it's still trust fund babies, upper middle classes comfortably ensconced in academia
yeah,
who are doing this.
yeah, and you know, no, the world is in chaos, but it's a particularly stupid chaos. Like I know, let's send 22,000 North Koreans to fight for Russia and Ukraine, and the North Koreans they finally captured one. He was the only survivor of a 40-man special forces unit, and
Oh,
he said we were told we were just going to guard
yeah.
place, and he said we have absolutely no ability to deal with what the weapons the Ukrainians have, and he said the Russians lied to our rising son of Kim Jong Un, or he called him something, the beaming sun or something. But this guy was completely messed up. He looked like a lot of his head had been blown away, and he was just kind of mumbling away. And I can understand a lot of Korean, and this guy's Korean didn't sound anything like the Korean I see on TV or I hear on
Right.
TV. And So the plan is to throw the North Koreans into the meat grinder. I mean, this is astonishing that it just goes on and on and on. And this is, you know,
It's one after the other. It- in 2017, when you and I started having conversations on Twitter, uh, one thing that set us apart from the mob was our conviction that North Korea did not represent a risk to anybody but themselves.
mm,
That North Korean's army was good for nothing. That the only thing they could do was march in unison, and then we share the theory that armies that march pretty don't fight because they spend all of their training learning how to do nice little figurines in the public square, and not enough time in the shooting range.
well, think about it. You see those perfect blocks of soldiers marching in absolute computerized unison. That takes,
Synchronicity.
that takes a lot of practice
Oh yes,
in all your spare time.
yes, they spend the day marching. And we said the same thing about the Russians. We said the same thing about the Russians when the Russians finally sent the invasion in. I think my statement was uh, if the Ukrainians can hold on for 3 days, the Russians cannot win.
Yeah, and if you think about it, when that fiasco started, the entire world, all the world's experts said that the Russians were going to steamroll the Ukrainians. And you and I knew that the Russians who came in from Belarus had no fuel for their
No, because they sold the fuel to buy vodka.
buy vodka. And
They were drunken bastards with no fuel.
right. And when the Russian paratroopers, just to remind everybody, the Russian way of fighting is the first thing they do is they send in these giant helicopters full of paratroopers to take over the major airports of the country they're assaulting. And then once they've captured the airport, they can have,
They can airlift supplies. That's their logistics.
exactly.
They can airlift supplies to whoever is there and keep it going.
Right. And the Russian paratroopers who went to Kiev International Airport
Yep.
jumped out of their helicopters and they were mowed down by 100 police officers each
I
who had
was
a
going to say that the Kiev police force
yep,
kicked them up. I mean,
they were wiped out.
one of these days I'm going to have to write it in humor form because the notion that the beat cops of Kiev kick, or rather, yeah, kicked the Russian special forces ass at the airport, defeated them, and forced them to run, all the way back to Belarus with the tail between their legs, is the biggest indictment of Russians you can imagine.
Well, remember the Russians made a big deal out of taking Snake Island. Snake Island was where the Russian ship broadcast to the
Yep.
soldiers on Snake Island, surrender now.
Surrender now, and they were going to guard, blockade the port of Odessa out of
Right.
Snake
And
Island.
the Ukrainians radioed back, Russian warship, fuck off. And
Mm-hmm.
so the Russians managed to take Snake Island, and then they were wiped out, and they retreated from Snake Island. And Zelensky personally flew into Snake Island and made a speech on Snake Island. I mean,
Yes, and they never came back.
we talk about Trump being a troller, but Zelensky is a hell of a troller.
Oh, Zelensky is, again, I don't know the guy.
No,
All I know of Zelensky is what I observed him doing, and what I can see is that it is extremely effective in keeping cohesion in Ukraine. he is very effective in keeping Ukrainians focused. He's also very effective in trolling the living crap out of Russians.
Well, one of the things
He's traveling the world like Putin cannot even dream of doing.
one of the things that really sets apart a world leader is if they're willing to sack the right people, the people who need to be sacked in order to win the conflict. And he's made these occasional purges, but Ukraine prior to this war was considered the most corrupt country in Europe.
Yes.
And
and now they met all of the governance objectives of the European Union.
Yeah.
Which is, by the way, that doesn't mean that there is no corruption in the European Union. God, do I know?
We've both been to Europe.
But let's say that it ain't Mexico.
Yeah. It's not Mexico. It's not China.
So it's not entirely free from corruption. But frankly, there is more corruption in the Biden administration presently than in Zelensky's administration.
If you look at the corruption that Zelensky, okay, let's talk about the help we've given them. They fire somebody because he pocketed. He was ordered to buy 80,000 sets of uniforms, and he bought like the shittiest, cheapest kind he could find and pocketed $28,000, in change and in difference, that sort of thing. It's like it's not like the corruption that happens in Mexico where, or in Iraq where the first defense minister ran off with $2 billion.
In Mexico, they keep all the money, force the soldiers to buy their own uniforms, and then bury them in them.
Yeah. No, I mean, all you have to do is watch combat footage from Ukraine, and you know that these are very, 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 very effective troops. And they're also, they found that the M2 the M2 Bradley infantry fighting vehicle is
the best thing they have.
It's more useful than main battle tanks because they can destroy. Okay, today Putin is he said that
they destroyed the Russians T-90s with the Bradley.
Right. Today, Putin said that the T-90 is the greatest tank ever built. He's now ignoring the T-14 Armada because only 20 of those were ever built, and I think 2 of them were destroyed in Syria, and it's unclear whether or not
all but 2 of them were destroyed in
Ukraine. But the Ukrainians are using infantry fighting vehicles to destroy Russian main battle tanks. And who did I hear today? Some Democrat said that we need to junk all our main battle tanks and use only drones. That the main battle tank is now a worthless weapon.
Well, that depends on the circumstances, but it doesn't surprise me coming from a Democrat.
Well, tell that to the Israelis. The Israelis are all over.
Tell that to the Israelis and tell me if you ever need to go into a place like Iraq again, if you're going to be doing it with drones.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the epitaph of the main battle tank has been written every year for the last 60 years. They've been claiming that tanks are obsolete, ever since the end of the Vietnam War. But
it all depends on circumstances. I mean, if you're going to go into an urban environment, it's fucking useless. But frankly, what Shvarkov did with tanks in Kuwait was a master play.
Yeah.
It ended the war with a single tank movement.
Well, even in Operation Iraqi Freedom, the main combat was over in 3 weeks because the armored forces, they came in from the south and they went whoosh all the way up to
Yeah.
Baghdad.
They didn't get to Baghdad a couple of days earlier because they could not do more than 40 miles an hour.
Yep.
But that's, there is no obsolete uh, piece of equipment in the U.S. Army, Navy, or Air Force today.
Well, and also,
It all depends on where's the theater.
In Iraq, they discovered that the M16 bullet had trouble penetrating the cinder block building. So they brought out all these M14 rifles that are a much higher caliber. It's a 30, I don't know if it's a 30-06. I think it's a little smaller. But anyway, these are rifles that were mothballed in the 1960s, and we still have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them.
Yeah.
So they brought them out and they put a lot of bells and whistles on them, and they issued them a certain number per squad. And if you were firing at an enemy behind cinder block walls, you just got the M14 guy up and he would fire through the walls. So, it's funny. Okay, we use the 50 caliber machine gun. That was first introduced in 1919. So it's 100 and something, 100 and
Yeah, but we don't need it anymore.
It's 104 years old and we're still using it. It's amazing.
And it's amazing what you can do from the air with that damn thing.
Oh yeah.
People talk. Yeah. By the way, I've gotten 2 replies to you. One is it's 3006, and the other one is 308.
Solves it once for all.
One of these 2 is correct. I think it is a 3006, but
I'll look up M14 rifle caliber, mass, length, cartridge. 3308. It's 7.62 by 51 NATO. So it's slightly smaller than the 30-06 used in World War II.
The 762 by 51. That's what we used. That's.
Yeah, it was a NATO. Everybody used the 7.62 by 51, and they had these gigantic rifles like the Belgian FAL.
Well, the FAL wasn't so gigantic. The FAB was.
Well, the problem with the FAL was that it was hard to control when you fired it in full automatic. The M16, you can fire it at full automatic.
Yeah, the FAL I used quite extensively, and I didn't have a problem with fully automatic with that one, except that you shouldn't use it for more than a short burst or something, because it would heat up like crazy.
Yeah,
and then it's like it's a useless gun.
The reason we went to the M16 was that the powers that be decided that with a smaller caliber bullet, each infantryman could carry far more ammunition.
Mm-hmm.
The 7.62 versus the 5.56 of the M16. Yeah, the 7.62 goes right through, and the M16 is designed to tumble and blow up inside, and so they operate on a completely different ideal. And myself, I prefer the higher caliber weapons than I know AR-15s are nasty, but I just prefer a higher caliber rifle.
Yeah.
At least 7.62, or in my case, I also have a 30-06, and that's gigantic, but it makes me feel better. So
It makes you feel like you may not have to shoot more than once.
well, that's the thing. Here in California, we're limited to 10 rounds per magazine. I don't know if that's been challenged or not. I think it's on the verge of being thrown
Yeah.
out because of the Supreme saying that you can't make those limitations. But
It's probably going to be thrown out. It's ridiculous, frankly. And theoretically, in Virginia, in Florida, I can have larger magazines for my pistol. Um,
I've seen some,
maybe 15, even larger. But when I bought the gun, it came with four 10 uh, four magazines of 10, because otherwise they couldn't sell it in California.
Yep.
And listen, I'm carrying around this thing with essentially 41 bullets.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck do I need more for?
You're almost certainly never going to get into an extended shootout with somebody.
It's ridiculous.
If you have a firearm for home invasion, you could pretty much just in your bedroom just fire it into the ceiling or out the window,
and they're out the window and running.
Yeah, exactly.
Before the sound dies off.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. So I understand. I sympathize with the principle that why the hell do you limit this, you nincompoops? But on the other hand, it doesn't bother me in the least. So I have 10 bullet mags. Big freaking deal.
Yeah, I have a 40 caliber carbine that has 10 round magazines, and I've loaded up 10 of them, so I have 100 rounds at my disposal, which I'm never going to need.
Where are you going to be, in fucking battle with an army? It's so. Anyway, I think I've shown you once, but I have a nice little funny pack with my gun and my magazines, and I don't feel that I am in any way limited in my ability to defend myself because the magazines are 10 bullets. I'm sorry. Philosophically, the limit is absurd. In practice, most of us, why should I give a shit? Where's the only place where I miss a larger magazine? At the range.
Sure.
Because, you got to reload these fuckers. And frankly, having twice as many makes your life at the range easier, but that's about the only place.
Yeah, I could see a 30 round magazine for a semi-automatic rifle, which all you need is basically one 30 round magazine.
Yeah.
And,
now the combat FAL that I had was a 20 round magazine.
20, yeah, that 20 would be fine too.
And of course, I had it taped with a second magazine. So on the rifle, I had 40 rounds, and then I carried 6 more. And if you need more than that, you're such dipshit.
Yeah, I mean, I read somewhere that the average special operator, his loadout, as they call it, they have I think they have 6 magazines on their chests. It's three pouches, and each pouch holds 2 magazines. So, and they say anything more than that is just it's just extra weight you have to carry around.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I I'm fine with what I have, in terms of home defense weapons. And I there's a lot of stuff that I wish I could get. If I look at online gun sales, they all say will not ship to California, and California has just become this pathetic joke state. And you know, we really used to be the golden state, and we're just not anymore. And I don't think things are going to change for a long time. I don't think I'm going to see a major change in my lifetime, because there's just too many. I mean, I've never driven to Vegas and back, but my brother says the second you get over the state line from Nevada into California, the road goes. Because we keep adding tax money to gasoline for the roads, but it never goes to the roads. There's potholes out there on some of the routes that I go, and some of these potholes are almost a foot deep. You're gonna wreck your car if you drive into it. And this is the Golden State. Come on.
That depends, if you're looking for a good time, it is the Golden State. If you're looking for a good road, it isn't.
Yeah, it's just quality of life. Quality of life has. I mean, poor Denny's. Denny's is shutting down another 150 stores.
Yep.
What else did I read? I mean, it's like you go driving around in my city, and the number of for lease signs. It's incredible. Like entire strip malls are now empty.
Yeah.
Every single building is for lease.
Well, it's gonna get worse.
Yeah.
It's gonna get worse. You see, California is already in a Detroit death spiral.
Yeah.
Now, the only reason it's still around is because when you have an economy the size of California, even being on a death spiral is not the end immediately. It's going to take years.
Oh yeah.
But unless some things change and change dramatically, whether it takes 10 years, as it appears Chicago is on its way of accomplishing, or 30, which is what it would probably take California to go belly up, it's going there. Evermore, taxpayers vote with their feet and move someplace. You have no idea how many Californians are in Virginia now, or in Florida.
And the interesting,
never mind Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, Arizona, Montana, which have been on the receiving end of Californians for the past 20 years.
Well,
Virginia.
Okay, and that's another change. It used to be that Californians would move to various states and continue voting the way they did in California. That's not happening.
That's not happening right now. No.
They're moving, and they're voting red. They've seen the light. Unfortunately, they had to leave because the voting but it used to be that we're going to turn Texas purple. No, you're not. No.
But the thing is this, it's the tax out of the willingness to stay. So the hell out. I mean, what else would you do?
Well,
and that reduces the tax base even more.
And also,
so they jack up taxes even more.
California is 100% progressive tax, relying on the wealthy. And the wealthy in California begins at $40,000 a year. You're in the top tax bracket.
Imagine that.
When the people in the top tax bracket start taking financial hits, the state takes a gigantic financial hit. So the state is constantly fluctuating between deficit and windfall, windfall. And as soon as they get a windfall, they blow it and go into deficit. Um, it's because the people running the state are too wealthy to care. Um, and this is what makes Trump unique, in that he's a billionaire who actually does care. And as he's pointed out himself, he doesn't need this. He could have spent the rest of his life enjoying his money.
Yeah.
And then the person he's up against, for the first time in her life, she's had to she's had to work for something, and she can't. She's incapable of doing it. She can't control her. It's just one ridiculous mistake after another, and it won't make any difference to most Californians, but it's making a difference from the rest of the country.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen their videos of blah blah as she retires to the limo.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Trump is the one who started, and she's the one who spooked.
Yeah. She's young and energetic. She don't look.
I can see that. I'll tell you what. In the shape that I saw her in that limo, not even Willie Brown would have gotten any advantage out of her.
No. Let's see. I don't even know how old she is. Do you know how old she is?
Ooh, I think she's pushing 60, but I'm not sure. But I am not sure.
Yeah, she's 60, so I'm older than her.
Let's say that she's no spring chicken. And funny that people our age essentially should be making age the issue.
Well, that's what's so ridiculous. Once you reach a certain point, I mean, okay, who was it? Nikki Haley, I think, wants like an age cutoff and a cognitive test and all of that.
Oh, it's just a fucking imbecile.
Well, she'll also be singing a different tune in about 10 years.
You think? I'm surprised if she doesn't start next week.
My brother thinks that they're going to run Shapiro in 2028. What do you think about that?
Nah, not even close. Shapiro is a fucking moron. The moment he goes onto a national stage is the moment that nobody talks about him anymore.
Well, also, the Democrats aren't going to run a Jewish candidate. That's all there is to it.
That too, but they could. You see, just it. I'm not an anti-Semite. I have a Jewish friend, type of shit.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, they're capable of running Shapiro because he may be a Jew, but he's our Jew, type of shit. They certainly have the leader of the majority in the Senate. They say he's a Jew. I haven't seen him do anything to confirm the theory. But they're not beyond running a Jew or a black man or whatever they need to run, despite their prejudices. The problem is they keep running idiots. Look at this one here. I think I've shown it to you before, but let's give it a try. This is blah. And in this particular instance, her teleprompter stops. And she starts babbling because she doesn't know what to say, while sending signals to whoever is operating the contraption that we need to move forward.
And understand the difference here. Understand the difference here. Moving forward. Moving forward. Understand the difference here. What we are looking at is a difference in this election. Let's move forward and see where we are. And understand the difference.
I love the scratching her in between her eyes in desperation. Remember, she also did that with number 32. 32.
Are you gonna fucking move it forward, or what do I have to do here, you sons of bitches? This is it.
Yeah.
It's a joke. I cannot, for the life of me. I told you the other day on the phone. Fuck the polls, fuck the cheating. I cannot imagine, I cannot form in my head the image of these imbecile in the White House.
Well,
I just can't.
The Somali American, what would you call them? Civic leaders, I guess, in Minnesota. One of them said, he said, to be frank, Trump can be kind of an asshole at times, but the issue is that we know he's got a track record, and we know that he can fix the problems that we're facing now. So I would imagine that Somali Americans would be about as far away from voting Republican as anybody in this country, and especially Somali Americans in Minnesota. So here you have, a guy making a speech about this, and he's getting applause from all these Somali American Minnesotans. And if you look at these groups that have never really voted Republican before, and in large numbers they're announcing that they're voting Republican, I agree with you. I just don't see this race as being any kind of a squeaker.
No, it might very well be, but I cannot imagine it. I would have to see it to believe it. On the other hand, I think that this is the position. By the way, this I'm going to show you now. It actually happened to me on a DC-1010 landing in Philadelphia. And just as we were going to touch down, I was sitting in the extra jump seat in the cockpit, and I got a harrowing first look at this. Another 7-4 just crossed the runway, and not another 7-4, a 7-4 crossed the runway, and our pilot pulled up full thrust, and we barely missed it. Passengers didn't know what happened, except that they were looking at the airport, and suddenly were climbing like hell. And I never saw it from the outside until I saw this. And this is kind of like the way I see the US having a near miss now.
Holy shit.
Now, can you imagine the rivers of shit of that pilot? That pilot left.
Well, that was pretty much what happened in Tenerife, where two 747s crashed into
Yep.
each
Pan Am and KLM, 700 dead.
other.
Eh? And it happens more often than people know. Like I said, I wasn't one of these near misses. By the way, why do we call them near misses? I don't know. It is a miss. It is a near fucking hit, as far as I'm concerned. But can you imagine? Solomon says that's a video game, by the way. Yes, the graphics are very much the graphics of a video game, but that's how I see this election.
Yeah, I mean,
I see us almost hitting a pile of shit from here to the moon. But everything is going to be okay if we miss it.
well, see, the way I look at elections now is that the elections work in that, we have to go back to Mencken, democracy is the theory that the common people know what they want and deserve to get it good and hard. And, if the country decides that they can't deal with Trump and that Kamala is for whatever reason is preferable, then we deserve everything that happens to us. We did deserve, okay, Biden cheated, or the Biden's people cheated, but only because the election was so close. And look at the catastrophe that's been Biden. I've seen 5 videos now of him biting babies. Every time they let him out in public, he starts biting babies. That's a new one. Have you seen him biting babies?
Yes, I
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
Biting the foot.
Biting the foot.
What
biting
the?
the yeah.
What's between his ears?
I don't know. And I don't know. I mean, Biden was problematic. My communist brother in New York insisted on talking the election. I said, well, I can't vote for Biden because he's got some kind of cognitive issue. And my brother said, I do not believe that. And I could tell by the way he said it that of course he believed it, but he was going to do what the team required him to do, and he was going to lie about it. Biden was a horrendous choice, even if he hadn't been demented. One could argue that he would have done even more damage if he hadn't been demented.
I said it all along. Forget dementia. He's one of the biggest sons of bitches ever to get to the White House.
Yeah.
He was a son of a bitch when he was lucid. He was no better when he started, skipping a bit with the clutch. I remember him in Congress. I remember him when he was elected to the Senate. I remember him when he tried to run for president in '88. And then again in let me see, he was in the primary in '92. He was in the primary again in 2000, I think. He never got more than 1% of the party's vote because nobody liked him because he was an asshole.
Yep.
If you just check the net, there are archives in Google going back to his first term as a congressman. You're going to find so much shit on this man like you've never found on any politician at all because he was the worst. He was an original. He was a plagiarist. He plagiarized Neil Kinnock, John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Mario Cuomo. There isn't a single fucking thing he ever said that wasn't copied from somebody else or total nonsense. And this is before his aneurysm and before his dementia.
Yep.
So there was no redeeming quality to Joe Biden. Joe Biden was an impossible candidate.
Yep.
The only reason Obama picked him as vice president is because he was an asshole with zero constituency in the party who could not possibly conspire against Obama.
Mm-hmm.
How he ended up in the White House, it's something that one day I may understand, but right now I don't. I don't. If they were going to put a brain dead asshole, they could have put anybody they wanted. They could have picked somebody halfway decent and not put the country through this shit.
Well, if the Democratic Party is indeed being run by billionaire donors who have no idea what real life is all about, then you can see why these decisions are all being made.
I don't know. And by the way, the Democratic Party has been the party of big donors forever.
Sure.
In the early 1900s, the political cartoons portrayed the Democrats as fat cats with top hats.
Yep.
So, what has changed? It was the party of the plantation owners in the South.
Mm-hmm.
It was the party of the fat cats in the Roaring '20s.
Yep.
So, and now it's a party controlled by mega donors. No shit, Sherlock. When were they not?
Well, maybe I think the difference now is that they're not interested in say hiring or consulting with political operatives, but are rather just giving orders.
Yeah, maybe it's always been like that. I really, the more I know about the Democrats, the less I like them anyway. There was a deal made prior to the South Carolina Democratic primary in 2020. Yeah, but that still doesn't explain shit to me. Still a party of fat cats? Yes, they are. So I don't know. I had a collection of pictures posted in Twitter moments back in the day. I don't even know where that shit's gone to. I'll see if I can find them and we can have some more fun with it. But all you have to do is look at political cartoons between 1870 and 1950 to realize that the Democratic Party were the party of the banks, the insurance companies, the big fat cats, the railroad tycoons, forever. How they managed to put that bell on the neck of the Republicans, I don't know.
With the mainstream media, and also academia.
Academia, maybe we can. Yeah. Well, it was the Democrats who brought the assholes of the Frankfurt School and put them in Princeton and Stanford and Columbia. You can call that the first step towards having pro-terrorist movements in there. Maybe that's the thing.
40 years ago, I went to college in Portland, Oregon, and I'd say the majority of my professors were injecting their politics into the what they were teaching, and it didn't impact me because, I mean, I already had my own ideas, and anyway, I didn't find my professors as being particularly profound
Or bright.
I never had a professor who made me think, wow, what an amazing mind this person has. I never had anyone like that.
Hmm. Yeah. Somebody says, Kelly, there was a seasoned Rockefeller Republicans, rhinos, you know. No, I don't know, because Nelson Rockefeller was a conservative and a damn good one, for that matter. And I do not understand why many conservatives today all of a sudden hate anybody with money, as if Trump was a Medicaid recipient, you know. Um,
Well,
there's nothing wrong with being a millionaire.
the thing about Americans is they hate the wealthy and they all want to be wealthy. So
Yeah.
once you have
No,
that
but
dual,
but they hate is where they lose me. Um,
yeah, I mean
I don't
it's
hate the wealthy.
no, but it's irrational. It's like you hate them,
Totally.
you also want to be them. That I mean, make up your mind.
Make up your minds, but make them up fast, because all of these hate the rich bullshit is what so many receive, like their mother's milk with the social doctrine of the church. Wealth is suspect and a sin, and poverty is virtue. The church preaches poverty, and the socialists make sure you get it. Uh,
Sure.
Me, no, there's nothing wrong with being rich. There's nothing wrong with big corporations. There is absolutely fucking nothing wrong with making money legally, providing a service that people buy. That is at the core of our system. It's at the core of our societal organization. And when we lose that, we turn to shit.
Well, what I don't like hearing is from too many self-described conservative influencers, for lack of a better term, using terms like big pharma and
Yeah.
Wall Street and I mean, big pharma is completely controlled by the government. The government tells them what to do. That this notion that the corporations control the country, that's absolutely not true. It's the he who passes laws has all the power in the country.
Yeah.
And
There you have a good example in the chat. I think the hate for the wealthy is the belief that they have a separate system of justice. Rich get away with crimes, other don't. Yeah, like Trump, right?
well,
Because he's rich, he didn't have any legal problems whatsoever, right?
I mean, okay, this is the view, but okay, if you look at the wealthy, what percentage of the wealthy find themselves in a trial for their lives, for example, versus
Pathetically small.
exactly. And you can't really make the argument. I mean, okay, statistics are very easily manipulated. My favorite manipulated statistic is that blacks are more likely to be killed by the police than whites. Well, what they don't tell you is that the statistic you need to look at is first encounter with law enforcement. And if you look at first encounter with law enforcement, whites are something like 5 times more likely to be killed by police than blacks. The only reason more blacks as a percentage are killed than whites is because blacks as a percentage have far more encounters with the police than whites do. So
Yes.
all those encounters start to add up, and eventually you're going to get yourself shot dead.
Except that if you look at the stats, the number of whites killed by police are exponentially larger than the number of blacks killed by police every year.
Yeah, in raw numbers, but we're talking about a percentage of the population.
Right. But again, when a higher percentage of the population commits the majority, when a smaller percentage of the population commits the highest percentage of crimes, you're going to have that. There was a time where Catholics were 13% of the population in America. Now they're about 33, 34. But there was a time when there were 13% of the population of America and 53% of the jail population in America. What was that? Police anti-Catholic bias? No, it was the time of the fucking mafia, where Italian gangs committed the vast majority of crimes. So all of a sudden, Catholics were the largest jail population in America.
Well,
Now they're not.
The issue with Black Americans is that the urban thug culture is embraced far more than. I mean, there isn't an analogous.
Analogy.
No, I need the adjective form. Analogous, analogy, analogical. There isn't an equal sort of form in so-called white culture. Not all Black Americans are partaking in urban culture, but you will see tons of kids dressing like thugs, talking like thugs, acting like thugs, even though they come from, upper middle class families.
Yeah, middle class kids showing up their ass with their pants halfway because they're in solidarity with their brethren in jail. Bullshit.
No, and if prison is seen as a rite of passage for every young man, then I mean you hear all these stories about the heroic Black matriarch raising the kids, and it's like, well, where's the father? Where's the father? There is no father, and I don't know, the value systems are what breed the criminals, not the poverty.
Yeah. Watch out, by the way, Bill Cosby started talking like that, and all of a sudden women came up from the time tunnel, and they started finding him guilty of rape 40 years earlier.
Well, good luck to anyone who's trying to get me on that. Holy God, I'd like to see that tried. But it's you have to have the ability to reject something that's considered that's basically the norm. You have to be able to stand up against the norm, and there are cultures in this country. Well, okay, look at mass shootings. You always hear about the typical mass shooter is a white male, in his between 18 and 40 or whatever. That's because there's far more white males than any other group, a different racial group. But if you look at the number of mass shooters as
a percentage of the population,
as a percentage of their population,
the
number one mass shooters are Asians. Number two are Native Americans. Number three are Black Americans, and white Americans are number four. So in terms of who poses more of a threat to the population, it's Asian males, not white males. But this isn't something that's discussed because it's considered racist.
Yep. And don't you start dividing them by gender, because you're going to be misogynistic.
Well,
now the question is, do we give a shit about those labels? No. I don't. They can call me whatever the crap they want. I at this point, I really don't give a shit.
No, I mean, the term misogyny, I don't know. It's kind of an old-fashioned term at this point, because it meant something when it was first coined, and it's used today. I mean, it's just It's another word that's lost all meaning. It's like,
All
the
meaning.
term racism or homophobic or whatever.
What the fuck is homophobic? Are you in fear of man?
Well, that's literally what it means.
Yeah, are you in fear of man?
Of humanity? Yeah, exactly.
I'm not. Period. End of story. No more argument. Thank you very much. That's what the word means. Are
Yeah.
you Islamophobic? Are you in fear of Islam? I'm not.
No, I mean, it goes back to the term xenophobic. Xenophobes are not afraid of foreigners; they just don't like them. And
Right.
so the term phobia, it's not particularly accurate.
No. And it is abused in so many
Sure.
ways that at this point, like you said, is totally meaningless.
Well, the leftists have ruined entire concepts. Triggered. That used to be an actual definition for people who have post traumatic stress disorder. You were triggered.
Yes.
And now the term is it's a subject for mockery because you ask people sarcastically, what are you triggered? Because or they would say, that word triggers me. I remember there was an artist who created these life-size human statues, and he put them all over this college campus, and he had to take them down because all these young women were triggered. And it's like, well, what do you mean? Do they all have PTSD? And these were just male figures. Like I think there was one kind of walking like this or something. They looked vaguely zombie-ish, but not. I mean, they were obviously statues. They weren't. They couldn't be mistaken for life-size humans. And if you're triggered by a statue to the point where you have to have the statue removed, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, you need to be removed and put in a psychiatric hospital.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. If people actually were what they claimed they were, then their lives would be much more problematic than they actually are. If you're actually triggered by everything and you have PTSD and anxiety and depression and all these self-diagnosed disorders,
would you work in an office with somebody who at any moment, for any banal reason, can have a psychotic break because somebody said good morning in the wrong tone?
Or maybe they misgendered you, or maybe they said Merry Christmas.
I'd say that they do not belong in a working environment. They belong in a hospital.
Well, that's the thing, that the system has, I mean, everything is on its head now. What should happen is that the average person out there should not have to make any accommodations for somebody who's claiming to suffer from all these disorders. It's the person with the disorders. It's their responsibility to figure out how to live in society. I mean, yes. I have several actual diagnosed psychiatric disorders, but I don't expect anybody to change their behavior in order to mollify me. My mental issues are my own. They're not, they have nothing to do with you. I would never say to you before we go on the show, now, Saul, you can't say this word because I'll get triggered. You can't say that word because I'll get triggered. I wouldn't dream of
that. But I love it every now and then when we go on a show and your neighbors trigger both of us.
Yeah, they had their party on Thursday.
But maybe we should go over there and say, listen, you cannot have a party at night because it triggers us. It triggers me every day, and it triggers Saul whenever we are having a conversation on Zoom or something. It's bullshit. I mean, I really can't stand it anymore. The wussification, not of America, of the world. I started saying it earlier tonight. Because we speak of this as if it were an American problem. It isn't. It is worldwide. It's gone pandemic. The kind of bullshit that I get from Italy, from Germany, from the UK, from South America, but that, it's kind of like par for the course. The entire world is living in a state of lunacy.
Well, see, this is what's so interesting about the current situation in the Middle East is that for decades, probably since about 1972, the Israelis deliberately held themselves in check. And people got the wrong idea about the Israelis. And so Hamas made the incredibly suicidal mistake of not only launching the attack of October 7th, but filming it.
Yeah.
A member of the Knesset, she's a member of the Likud party, just addressed the United Nations in English, and she just described the things that had been done to Israeli women that were captured on video. And these are things that you shouldn't even hear about. You will be haunted if I were to describe to you what I heard.
Some men too.
You would be haunted. And this was a bridge too far for the Israelis, and now the Israelis are fighting cleanly but without mercy. And it has to be done. And I personally believe that after Trump becomes president, Trump will offer the mullahs to make a deal with the Israelis, recognize Israel's right to exist, and, if possible, join the Abraham Accords or whatever, something they won't do. But I believe that the Israelis will overthrow the mullahs. They will kill the mullahs.
No. I don't have to listen to this woman. I saw some of those videos at the Israeli consulate. It's not going to send me into a down spiral. It is some of the most horrendous shit that I've ever seen. And the notion that this is not a movie, that this is real, is not just chilling, it's devastating. That such inhumanity lives next door.
Well, lives, period.
It is sobering, to say the least. That's one of the reasons why I say the Israelis will continue, because they have no alternative.
The Hamas showed the Israelis that they have no alternative. That there is no limit of depravity for Hamas.
No. And by extension, for Hezbollah and for Iran.
Exactly.
And I spoke of more than a year ago of a change of paradigm. Israel can no longer coexist with this evil. Containment is no longer an option.
No.
Nothing is acceptable by the total defeat of people who advocate doing this. And by total defeat, I mean they're dead, or they surrender their weapons, and spend the rest of their lives in captivity, in jail. There is no middle point on this, and there cannot be a middle point on this. There cannot be a negotiation. Only a moron, only a brainless fucking moron will call for a ceasefire under these circumstances. There cannot be one. Period. Israel should, and I believe will, continue methodically to rid the world of these vermin, because I don't think they have a choice.
They don't have a choice, and they understand that the U.S. is an inconsistent ally, and they have closer alliances now with Arab states than they really do with the United States, given which administration is sitting in the White House. Netanyahu said that Trump was the greatest friend of Israel that Israel had ever had, and Trump was followed by an enemy of Israel.
Yep.
And the Israelis and the Gulf Arabs have finally decided that they can't really depend on us. They have to depend on themselves. And my prediction is at some point in the future, the Israeli Gulf Arab alliance is going to produce weapons on a par with those that we have, not in the same numbers, of course, but on a par or even superior. Not, I mean, strictly for defense. But as you know, the best defense is an offense. And so people, they're called the Israeli Defense Forces, but they carry out offensive actions in defense of Israel. And
preemptive strikes.
Exactly. Preemptive strikes. And okay, everything the so-called experts told us about Hezbollah turned out to be a lie. The Israelis, it would take them decades. No. They killed the Grand Poobah without much of a problem.
And his replacement, and his replacement's replacement. And now we have a new one. He's already been in position for 48 hours. He's about to set a new record.
There we go. No, and I've seen the combat footage with Hezbollah. They don't know how to fight. They weren't trained how to fight. They were trained to march. That's it. They're trained by the Iranians. Okay, what are the Iranians?
Oh, well, they're trained by the Iranians mean that they can beat up a woman for showing her hair.
Yeah, exactly.
They it's like, I used to tell people during the Falklands War, I told you about the submarine that couldn't sink and all that jazz. It couldn't go underwater. These things are for Mad Magazine type of shit. But the commander of that particular force in the submarine that could not submerge was an asshole, Astis, a Navy captain, who had been infamous for his persecution of civilians. And he was responsible for the murder of a group of nuns, of students. He used to infiltrate groups of mothers or relatives looking for their missing, and use that information to, in turn, make those relatives disappear as well. He was an asshole from here to Timbuktu. And when he went to the Georgias with the submarine that couldn't submerge, eventually the Brits sent a helicopter, and everybody was expecting some kind of confrontation. But he, of course, surrendered without firing a single shot. And people in New York would tell me, how come he surrendered without firing a single shot? And I told them because he didn't recognize an enemy in uniform. For him to see an enemy, the enemy had to be wearing miniskirts or jeans. He was trained to go after students, not soldiers. That's what happens with the Iranians. The Iranians are very good at persecuting the defenseless. But if they ever have to beat an army, they're not going to last more than 15 seconds.
Yeah, I made a video when in the Battle of Fallujah, the second Battle of Fallujah. I guess this was actually the third Battle of Fallujah. Anyway, 2016. There was a column that was going to a bridge where a Shiite soldier had been hanged by the Islamic State. And what this guy did was he managed to make the V for victory sign after they threw him off the bridge with a rope around his neck. And as he was falling, he wrapped his arm in the rope. It made a V for victory sign. So even though he died, his hand was up in a V for victory sign. And so he was a Shiite. He was executed, or he was murdered simply because he was a Shiite. And so the Iraqis wanted to capture this bridge, and they had a commander of the Quds force leading them, and he led them into one of the largest urban ambushes you've ever seen. The Islamic State set off house bombs. I counted about 16 destroyed Iraqi federal police armored vehicles. And the moment that this Iranian buffoon was removed from command was actually caught on film. There was a young man. He looked to be an Eritrean. He looked to be an Eritrean, or I'm pretty sure he had to be an Eritrean, since that the Eritreans sent units to fight in Fallujah or fight against the Islamic State. And the Iraqi colonel gestured to his aide, and the aide beckoned the Eritrean man over. In the next clips, it was the Eritrean man single-handedly destroying every single Islamic State position. He using every weapon that the Iraqis had. And then there was a second clip where it looked like an Eritrean was chewing out the Iraqis for listening to the Iranian, and they just lost a tank. And eventually, the column that was under attack, it made its momentum, it regained its momentum, and it captured the bridge. But the Iranian who was in charge, he was then sent to Syria, where he was immediately killed. He was he was a brigadier general. So you had a brigadier general in charge of a single motorized infantry column. Brigadier generals aren't trained to do that. And if you're Iranian, like you said, like we said, you're only trained to murder civilians. You're not trained to actually fight the Islamic State. And it took the Eritreans, I believe, were members of a parachute commando battalion, and they were trained. They were very well trained. And as soon as they had wiped out the terrorists in front of them, then the Iraqis were able to take the bridge and get their photo op and do all of that.
Yeah.
and then they quietly sent the Iranian back home when he was sent to Syria, and got him. I used to keep track. It was something like 60, 67 Iranian officers were killed in Syria, something like that.
Something like that. I wasn't keeping track, but I know it's several dozen.
Yeah. So, and all the heroes, like forgot his name already. The one who looked like a demon, the Iranian.
That's Soleimani.
Yeah, Soleimani.
Yeah,
Soleimani. Soleimani.
The guy with the finger left.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no, I'm sorry. It was this finger with a ring.
It was a finger with a ring, a fat finger, and okay, they were hit with a missile, and then I think an A-10 strafed them to make sure, because there's an amazing audio tape, and you just hear this bum 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 bum. So when you saw the car, it was like the most beautiful piece of modern art.
Oh yeah, it belonged in the Centre Pompidou in Paris.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, with the asshole inside.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But
and when I say the asshole inside, I mean the asshole, because that's the only thing that was left.
Well, he was riding with the head of the People's Mobilization Unit.
Yeah, PMU, People's Mobilization Units.
Right, and that guy, he was characterized by his white hair and his glasses.
Yep.
And his glasses,
the glasses melted into the face.
Yeah. So there's this horrific photo of him lying on the ground going, with his glasses melted into his head.
Yeah.
It was just like, they really made sure these guys were no longer with us.
It's the only thing you can do. It's the only thing you can do. And if it wasn't for Biden, Khamenei would have joined them by now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
When you think that our government has been pressuring the Israelis to go easy on Iran, why?
Exactly. And especially don't destroy their nuclear research facilities.
Why?
Exactly. Well, did you hear what the Iranian foreign minister said? He said, we don't have a bomb assembled, but we could assemble one at any time.
Good. That should be the green light.
Well, he's lying. They haven't tested.
Number one, they haven't tested. Number two, they have shown recently that they have no delivery systems, and now they have less delivery systems than none. Because one of the things that the Israelis destroyed is their capacity to build long-range missiles.
And also, they destroyed a massive depot of solid rocket fuel.
Yeah, they have no solid rocket fuel, no factory anymore. They cannot produce long-range missiles anymore. If they were to put all of their resources into rebuilding now, it would take them at least 2 years to be able to get one out of line. And I don't think Israel is done.
No, the Israelis destroyed all of Iran's air defenses for a reason.
Yeah, they can go in whenever crap they want right now.
Yep.
They can send in an F-35 fly into Khamenei's asshole, and they wouldn't be the wiser.
Well, what I think is likely, if the mullahs launch an attack, then I think the Israelis will, because the Israelis said that they still hadn't retaliated for a previous.
Israelis already let them know that they have not retaliated yet for the attempt on Netanyahu's life.
That's it. So basically, the Israelis just said, Khamenei, write out your will and prepare to meet your ancestors.
Yeah, which he's already doing, because it appears Khamenei is dying of cancer.
Yeah.
So maybe just, the Israelis decide to save a couple of money on the side and use that missile for something else, because the bitch is going to be dead anyway. Although I would much rather see him
Yeah, yeah.
like Soleimani's ring.
Well, I'm hoping that Ismail Hania, as he was in his room before the bomb went off, I'm hoping a little recording came on and said, "Hello, guess who this is?"
Shalom.
Shalom. Yeah, yeah. You have 3 seconds. One.
There's something to be said for the mafia.
The what?
The mafia.
Mm,
La Cosa Nostra. They always made it a point to let the Sun to join his ancestors in the funny farm. Who was killing him and for what?
mm.
I brought you a message from Vito. Because he had to know just before he croaked. Why? I hope, like you do, that the Israelis managed to put a recording. So and so from Kibbutz X is sending you this reminder, so you die with her in your mind. I would love it.
Oh, isn't it?
Kelly is confirming that he has cancer and will appoint his son to replace him. Okay, then kill the son.
Oh, kill the whole stinking lot of them.
Yeah.
Next time together, just flatten the building.
Yeah, but kill the son first so that Khamenei can see his son die and then know there is no succession.
Yeah, unbelievable.
I really, they bring out the worst in me.
Well, just the fact that living cadaver Jimmy Carter, flew that fucker in. The Khomeini flew him in from Paris, and Mika Brzezinski's father said, "Oh, there's no danger whatsoever that they will become a hub for jihadism."
No, the same thing as Miley and Lloyd saying that the Taliban won't be able to do anything for at least 2 years. Yeah, sure,
Weeks.
asshole.
Yeah.
You and I said on the show, it's not going to be 2 weeks. And it wasn't.
Yep.
But you see the pattern here. That asshole Szynski talking about the Ayatollah not being a problem is the same thing as Miley and Austin saying that the Taliban is not a problem. Remember, it was the kindler, gentler Taliban.
Yeah.
This time they're going to be different. Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they just announced that women cannot pray within earshot of each other, which prevents women from ever attending a mosque.
Well, or being 2 of them together in a room. They cannot speak loud enough to be heard by a third person. Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
But then again, fuck him.
Well, this is the thing.
Him. Anybody who complains about this, I don't give a shit. They wanted us out of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Out.
Well, do you remember National Geographic had that famous magazine cover of the
face with the green eyes?
Yeah, they actually went and found her, and she's just like this. She was just like this block. Like she had kids. She was living in Purda, and she just cooked and cleaned, and that's all she did.
Yeah.
And she did take the time to say that the U.S. should get out of their holy country of Afghanistan.
Good. And for the left complaining about the plight of women in Afghanistan, I don't give a rat's ass.
Well, when we freed the women the first time around, the left said that we were war criminals. So
Yeah.
sorry,
So,
we can't
so
be.
you go do something about it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have the heart to ask an American boy to risk his life to go and do this again, so that the same ungrateful bitches chastise him for being a war criminal and force him to do this for nothing.
Yeah.
No. I've had it with that.
No, it was a 20 odd year war. So that's enough. Afghanistan gets to. Yeah, Afghanistan may become a country that needs to be bombed periodically, but that's
Yeah,
all right.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. I think that the B2, however many we have to treble the quantity, and we have our pilots leave home in the morning, jump on a B2, go over there, bomb the living fuck out of whatever facility they have. We left Bagram intact. Yeah, bomb it. Leave
Yeah.
a crater where it was.
Oh, gee, it was full of Chinese. Oh, well.
Oh, well, consider that a bonus. And that's the end of it. I never believed that we had the responsibility to rebuild our enemy.
Well, you know
I
where
never
that
believed that.
you know where that came from, right?
Please tell me. You broke it, you pay for it?
No, after World War One, the Germans. Okay, the Germans had a civil war that went on from 1918 to 1923, and then they had like this outrageous hyperinflation.
Mm.
Ernest Hemingway wrote this really haunting account of going across the border into Germany from France and going to a pastry shop, and there was a worker stationed next to the chalkboard that gave the prices, writing the price, erasing it, writing the higher price, erasing it, writing the higher price. And Hemingway had breakfast, lunch, and dinner in Germany, and then came back, and the whole thing cost him like 68 cents or something like that. And so because of the Treaty of Versailles and the Nazis or the Germans getting the blame for everything, that gave rise to that allowed the Nazis to say, look what they did to us. So we believed that after the Second World War, unless we rebuilt, then there would just be another Nazi party. So that's where the Marshall Plan came around. We also did it.
But why wait for a new Nazi party when we can save the old one?
Well, okay, I mean, it's all, I mean, we shipped all Operation Paperclip. We shipped all the Nazi rocket scientists over here, and in the case of Unit 751 in Japan, 731 in Japan, we promised we didn't prosecute them in exchange for them giving us all their data on the atrocity they committed.
Which is, by the way, fine by me. You see, why the hell did we have a trial in Nuremberg?
Well,
why not just hang the fuckers right away?
Well, that's what the Poles and the Czechs and
the Soviets and everybody else was
the Croatians. That's what they all did.
And that's what every victorious army has always done to the bad guys in the defeated army. That's what victory looks like.
But see,
we would have been entirely justified to shoot by firing squad anybody we caught operating a death camp.
Well, also, we did. There's some, one of the highest ranking German officers was a general and his execution is very well documented in these grotesque photos of him, flying to pieces as he's getting a barrage of 12 30-06 rounds. But we were feeling especially righteous back then.
I know.
we were
And I have to say, and especially stupid.
Well, we were setting an example for the world, and of course we didn't, because there's never going to be another Nuremberg trial.
No.
Okay,
and all we did was pay for Hesse's life in captivity forever. I have to look at it as a parody.
Yeah.
I cannot take it seriously. It's chronicle of a trial foretold. We knew what was going to happen with these assholes. Why give them the opportunity to spew their propaganda to a larger audience?
Well, in the excuse me, in the early 40s, the Nazis landed a saboteur squad on the East Coast, and as luck would have it, they were buffoons.
Yeah, they're the ones who wanted to put bombs in New York.
Right, and all of them were arrested in like brothels, and one of them immediately turned himself in. And according to the laws of warfare, like you said,
they could have been shot on the spot.
Right, and instead we had a trial, and the defense lawyer for the 12 Nazis put his heart and soul into defending them, to the point
as he should have.
Well, the Nazis were astonished. Why would he was a military officer. This is a military tribunal, but there was no reason to go through all of this. These were confessed saboteurs. They were operating in civilian clothes rather than uniform. They were going to commit acts of terrorism. They should have just simply been tied to posts and executed.
Yeah, I'm all for that. I'm all for the economy of resources.
Well, one of our biggest weaknesses is our sense of self-righteousness, and we need to adopt more of a hardcore Trumpist view of the world, where Trump doesn't want to bomb people, but when he does bomb people, he gives it his all, and there's nothing proportional about it. The Russians at Deir ez-Zor can testify to that. We should can the self-righteousness. The world doesn't want to be like us. They want to be here, or they want to hate us, and nothing in between. And
they want to be here hating us.
And they want to be here hating us.
That's a third road. Yeah. They want to come over here and hate us from here.
Well, I will say that I think the overwhelming number of Americans by choice are incredible Americans. The ones who become citizens, as I told you before the 2016 election, at the gym swimming pool I was at, all the immigrants were for Trump, and all the white soft beta male Californians, they were all for Hillary, and the immigrants were just laughing at him. So what did I read about today? Dinner time home invaders from South America. They wait until you're having dinner, and then they break down the front door.
Oh, please, God, send me one. It's going to end up right next to the short rib.
Well, okay, you could explain to the cops why you shot him, but I don't think you could explain to the cops why you barbecued him.
I got confused. I see an animal, I skin it and barbecue it. It's a reflex. I was trying to explain to him about Jerry Dahmer, and we got carried away. He fell on the grill, says somebody on the chat. He was just trying to invade, and wouldn't you know, he just tripped and fell on the grill, and there you are.
Yeah, and then the lid fell down, and
yeah, shit happens. By the time I realized it, he was already medium rare.
I mean, think about it. Aren't you sick of South American criminals in our country?
I was sick of South American criminals in our country 30 years ago.
Sure.
This is not new. I was sick of the fuckers when the Colombian gangs destroyed New York in the 80s. Because this is not new. We have been the idiot uncle for the longest time that I can remember.
Sure.
Mexican cartels, Colombian gangs, Venezuelan gangs, everybody's been having their fucking picnic in America. The guy who is president of Colombia, that fucking terrorist, El Cacas Petro. You know why they call him El Cacas?
I don't know why.
This is true, by the way. I'm not making this shit up. Because one of the sources of revenue for his band of misfits was kidnapping people, professors, judges, businessmen, for ransom. And they used to keep the prisoners in a hole with a grated access gate on top. And Petro took pleasure in taking a shit through the hole on them. That was his pastime every day, to shit on the kidnapped.
Okay, now he's a member of...
His own men called him El Cacas.
Okay, he's a former member of the FARC, right?
No, he's a commander of M19.
Oh, okay.
M19. And by the way, the president of Mexico used to be a bitch for the M19. And when I said that, a lot of people said no. And now Petro has come out officially and said that after the inauguration of Claudia Sheinbaum, now we have two presidents in South America who come from the M19.
Perfect.
Isn't that lovely? And she was a hanger-on who was, the revolutionary, and she was fucking all of the guerrillas and rendered services to the movement. Not to El Caca's bowel movement, that's a different thing. This is the kind of shit that we're dealing with. Back in 1980, 1980, when I was still in the Amazon, I tried to go to Bogota from the Amazon. So I went from Benjamin Constant on the Brazilian side to Leticia on the Colombian side in hopes of making it to Bogota. When I was in Leticia, I was stopped by the M19. Because that's, by the way, in the vicinity of Leticia is where he kept the base and the people in the holes and that he used to shit on. And they stopped me and held me for a week. Because, what are you doing here? And after that week, when they let me go, instead of Colombia, I ran back to Brazil, never to set foot in Colombia again. Because And they used to tell me how they had control of the cocaine traffic in that area, and the way they explained it to me, it was a strategy to destroy the U.S. by flooding the U.S. with drugs. That was their stated plan. It was an act of war. We're still dealing with this shit as if it were a police matter. It isn't. And now
Well,
the people who grew rich doing this are now in control of the institutions and the army.
well, this is why we need to launch military strikes against them.
Period.
Yeah.
And we locate a cocaine lab, just fly out of Missouri, bomb the living fuck out of it, kill anything alive in the area, and come back home. Oh, but you might kill a civilian. That's their fucking problem. That's gonna teach them to stay the fuck away from those facilities. I'm beyond giving a damn.
Let me just look up something quick. Okay, hold on. Okay, the U.S. Army intelligence support activity is the most secretive special operations unit that we have. Nobody really knows the size and what it does, but we do know that they were involved in helping kill Pablo Escobar.
Yeah.
And if we did it once, why can't we do it again?
Oh, we did more than once. I remember that a guy I used to know in Coral Gables was in one of these units in Colombia.
Hmm.
And the guy running the rebel base with the coke lab came with demands, and he said by noon tomorrow I'll give you my answer. And at 11:30 a.m. he bumped the living fuck out of anything that moved and destroyed the labs and he said to me, "What other answer could I give the fucker?"
Yeah, exactly.
We need more people like that.
Yeah, I mean, and we have people like that in the country, but this current flabby sort of pale shadow of what the armed forces once were. I mean, it's really pathetic.
No, we have the best people in the army. A month from now, I'll be back in Fort Campbell, and I'll be back with people both active duty and retired that I see every year. They're among the best of us.
Oh yeah,
in every respect. They will do for this country whatever is asked of them, and they will do it well. We need to stop misusing them. We need to stop mistreating them. We need to stop asking them to sacrifice their life for a fleeting political coup.
well, this is why we have to uncouple the State Department from the U.S. Armed Forces. We can't let the State Department have any say in any of this anymore.
No, nothing. It's like, diplomacy failed. Now it's the army's turn. You get the fuck out of here, and I don't want to hear from you. Nobody did more to squander our victory in Iraq than Brenner.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody. And in his stupid arrogance, this insistence in giving Iraq within months a constitution with a form of government modeled after parliamentarian Italy. I mean, really, what the fuck do these people have for breakfast? Crazy Jews? Italian parliamentarism doesn't fucking work in Italy, asshole. What makes you think it's going to work in the satrapy?
Well, see, there's a factor that nobody ever talks about when it comes to politics is perversion. And I don't mean perversion in that you like to
in the Jennifer Lopez P. Diddy sense.
Yeah, I don't mean that. I mean, when somebody is perverse, they're doing something. Okay, when John McCain was running for president, he chose Sarah Palin 3 weeks before he announced it. So he gave her absolutely no time to prepare. And then it was suggested that she be sent out to people like Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh to do interviews. And McCain put his chin in the air and he said, "No, I'm going to send her to Katie Couric because she's a great American." That was McCain's perversion. He was a perverse man, and he sabotaged both Sarah Palin and himself in the name of whatever McCain valued. And we have too many people like that, people who point to Italy as a success story in forming a government. That's perverse. That's completely perverse.
It's completely perverse. And the idea that in the Arab culture of Iraq, that kind of government of weaklings is going to have a chance. It's beyond idiotic. Beyond idiotic. And that's what we had. It's like we had, our boys did everything that was demanded of them and more. Saddam was said to have the fourth largest army in the world. It lasted 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
We had it for breakfast. But then we wanted to do it on the cheap, so we didn't have enough forces. And I keep forgetting, and we had the betrayal of Nancy Pelosi.
Nancy Pelosi.
Who picked a fight with Turkey at that time, with a resolution in Congress that served absolutely no fucking purpose on the Armenian genocide of 1917, just to piss the Turks off at the very moment where we needed Incirlik and to use Turkey to bring 100,000 troops into northern Iraq.
Yep.
And because of Nancy Pelosi, the government of Turkey at the time, which wasn't Erdogan, and was very much pro-West.
Yeah, I remember the president at the time.
Yeah, and because of that, we didn't have enough troops to have a constabulary. And by God, it still worked.
Mm-hmm.
And our press started talking how, they had stolen all the goodies from the museum of that shit, when in fact it was the museum administrator who hid it.
Yeah, exactly.
Protect it. But many people in the U.S. today think that because of the U.S. invasion, we lost all of those wonderful antiquities.
Well, see, this goes back to the Bush administration not pouncing on these stories as soon as they come out, and I don't know. It's just, we'll let history decide, is what George W. always said. And, unfortunately for him, history has decided, and it's decided wrong. So, you hear conservatives now say Bush lied us into war, and nothing could be further from the truth.
No, they're still saying it.
Yeah.
They're still saying it. People who call themselves conservatives are still carrying water for Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah.
By repeating the themes of Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid and the cant of Code Pink.
Yeah.
They can go. They can all go fuck themselves. I'm sorry. I'm not going. Peace for peace sake was never my way of approaching these things. These people are betraying the U.S. Are betraying everybody who risked their lives over there.
Well, this goes back a long way. It really reached its peak during the Vietnam War. Everything that they were saying, these same people were saying about the Vietnam War was also a lie.
Yes. They still lie.
They still lie. And one wonders what no, actually, I take that back. They'll do and say anything to get power. That's it. It doesn't matter who dies in the process. It doesn't matter, what.
Yeah, and ironically, power may jolly well be a check for an article.
Sure.
We're not talking about governing the world here. Their definition of power for most of these people is so petty. It's so small, so short-sighted.
The biggest problem today in politics is that politics is literally in bed with journalism. That politicians and journalists find their mates in the political world, and those in the political world find their mates in the journalism world. And
yes.
So basically, you're going to write what your wife or husband or lover tells you to write because you want to please that person. And
how about the female reporters who get sources by fucking them?
Exactly.
Like the horse face that went after Robert F. Kennedy. Come on, give me a. You're going after a serial abuser in the expectation that you might get what?
I don't know. I have no idea what Robert F. Kennedy has to offer.
And yet, the stupid cow did. I don't get him. I really don't get him.
Well, she said that it always worked. All she had to do to get information was to send naked pictures of herself to in. And that's really weird to me because if I want to look at naked pictures of women, I can open a tab right up here at the top of my computer, and I can go to Google Images and I can just type in whatever I want to see. So,
yeah, and it's probably going to be nicer than horseface.
Well, that's the thing. That why are men acting as if these are the first nudie pictures they've ever seen in their lives?
Because they're jerk-offs.
It's just so bizarre to me.
Because they're jerk-offs. Because they are adolescents. Because they're in, their emotional development stopped at 14.
Well, you can buy a politician with a dinner, a bottle of wine, and a prostitute, and that politician is yours.
Not necessarily in that order.
Not necessarily in that order, which is bizarre. I mean, I told you the Iranians they wanted to fly me to San Francisco in 2014, and I turned them down, and so they had some woman call me. I'll do anything, and I mean anything, to do this interview. It's like, good for you. Goodbye.
Yeah. Go do it by yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think I told you once that when I had launched the airline in Argentina, we had a delay in we had been promised a couple of L-1011s that were to come from TWA. At the very last moment, the leasing company said that, those are not available. The only thing we're going to have is a 747 2 months from now. And we had already sold entire charters. So I made a deal with a wonderful woman, a Peruvian woman in Miami, Jean Rich. She owned Rich International Airways, and we had a very good relationship for the longest time. And she set aside an L-1011 for my use, so that I could fly these charters that we had already sold on a wet lease agreement until my planes were ready and my crews qualified, and I could just do it on my own. And she did it with a friend price, if you know what I mean. It was really convenient. When we're about to go, we hit a hard one. I get a call from DC. One of our attorneys over there, who was a very good friend, told me that we had problems and the Department of Transportation was not issuing the permits because Argentina had not recertified its civil aviation scheme. To put it in a nutshell, for any countries, for the planes of any country outside of the US to say fly over New York City on approach to Kennedy Airport, the US wants to know that they're safely operated. So they have to certify the Civil Aviation Authority in the country of origin to make sure that they are being properly, I wouldn't say controlled, but that there is proper oversight on their operations. Things had changed in the late 80s, and there had been a couple of very serious events. So the US decided that all the airlines that were already flying into the US were grandfathered in, but any new airline from any country that had not had a recertification of their Civil Aviation Authority would be denied any permits until such recertification took place. Now, I'm flying my own plane into the US in 30 days. And I don't have the permits because the Civil Aviation Authority in Argentina is not recertified. I managed to get the FAA to use a procedure that is described in the statute but had never been used before, of recertification by phone. So essentially, somebody from the FAA is going to call the director of the Argentina Civil Aviation Authority and conduct an interview and check the boxes, and if everything is kosher, recertify the authority. I get the next day a DHL with the entire questionnaire that is going to be used on that phone call and the answers expected. So I call the asshole, a brigadier of the Argentine Air Force, and I tell him, you're going to be called. We need to certify this, your authority. Well, what the fuck do they care? We know what we're doing. I say, well, you don't care. You don't give a shit, but I'll tell you what. I can't fly. You guys don't get another fucking dime. So you're going to pick up the call. And we're going to sit down tomorrow and I'm going to tell you exactly what to answer. Oh, we know what we're doing. I don't need anybody to tell me what to answer. Well, I'll give you just one example. One of the questions this fucking asshole received was, what did the authority do to ensure the fitness of the pilots? Think about that for a second.
Mm-hmm.
And the degenerate answer, we require 2 weeks of gym per week. Except that nobody was talking about their physical fitness. They were talking about their fitness as pilots, you fucking
Mhm.
idiot. They wanted to know what kind of oversight the Civil Aviation Authority had, how many hours of simulators, how many check rides. And this idiot says, we make them do 2 hours of exercise per week. The phone call failed. The civil authority could not be certified. Now I am 2.5 weeks from D-Day, and I still don't have my permits, and these assholes are still not certified. So, by pulling on some relations of my attorney, we managed to get the FAA to consent to sending 2 inspectors to do the thing in person in a week. Contrary to law, I get the names, the flight they're coming in, and half their life story. When they arrive in Ezeiza, I'm waiting on the tarmac with a fucking limo. The 2 were from Puerto Rico, by the way, because they were the ones who spoke Spanish, based out of Miami. I took him to a hotel. Then I took him to dinner. Then I took him to La Ventana, a tango show. And I left him there with 2 of the most expensive whores I could find in Buenos Aires. The next day at noon, drunk as skunks, I took him back to the plane that took him back to the US, where they proceeded to certify that the Civil Aviation Authority in Argentina, after having spoken with no one there, was A-OK and could be used. And that's how my first plane arrived. Somebody wants to tell me that everything is peachy, that we have no corruption, that it can... Any one of these guys can be bought with a bar of chocolates. Period. There is no government bureaucracy that is not corrupt to the core. It's in their nature. Now, maybe, just maybe, the guy who was in charge of the FAA at that time was not corrupt. But it always breaks on the weakest point, you know. It's... go away from Google, Thomas, says somebody.
What? Well, I use Google, I use Bing, I use DuckDuckGo.
I don't think it matters. DuckDuckGo uses Google.
Yeah, I read about that. Yeah.
So, you know, you think you're being proactive and you're not.
Well, I will say that Bing and Google, Bing images and Google images will give you different results for the same thing. So that's
yes,
interesting.
And I'm never satisfied with my results in Bing, by the way.
No, Bing is good for a small number of really good images, and Google is good for a wider array of images. So
yes,
when I'm looking for images in the public domain, 100 years old or whatever, I'll go to Bing and I'll search in like Russian or German or Croatian, and I'll find like one or two public domain images that are really useful. Google will give me a huge barrage of images, but a lot of them are not all that good. So take your pick.
Yeah, no, I think I do the same thing you do. I'm not married to any one system,
No,
any one search engine, any one anything,
no,
but I use them all. I do not boycott them selectively either.
no.
I know what they are,
Yeah, exactly.
and govern myself accordingly. But oh my God, they're gonna. It's like you're reading the New York Times. Would I not read an article? Yes, I read them. I also make allowance because I know who the fuck is writing them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't watch mainstream media. I don't watch CNN. I occasionally, if somebody mentions it. I mean, the people I watch are they're not journalists per se. They're news aggregators. So and I go to various news aggregator sites. There's one called Just the News. There's one called Ground News. So if you're careful, well, if you're smart, I mean, if CNN tells you that Trump is a Nazi and you know that Trump is a Federalist, then you know that
you know what there is to know as to how to interpret
exactly
what they say.
Yeah.
Both guys says X is the source for news. No, I'm sorry, it isn't. It's a source, not the source.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
it's also the source for the greatest amount of bullshit on the planet.
the what was it? Yeah, Trump driving his garbage truck. I just looked up Trump in garbage truck, and I'd get a really funny comment from a conservative, insane raving from leftists.
Yes.
A couple really funny comments from conservatives, insane, childish, infantile raving from a leftist. The lines are drawn. I mean, our side is smarter. There's no doubt about it. Our side is funnier. I'll give it, including the guy running for president. He's just funnier.
He is, isn't he? I kind of like the sense of humor Trump.
Yeah.
By the way, this is the story about Peanut and all that jazz. This is the one I came up with today.
Vote for Trump.
Yeah, you know that this is one of the things that have been most circulated of my shit. You pour your soul into a very sophisticated analysis of the history of terrorism in the Middle East, and you get nice, and then you put this, and it's a fucking earthquake.
Well, I mean, if you go to YouTube, there's some channels. One is called Cuddle Buddies, and one is called Dodo, or I can't remember. But anyway, it's people and their pet squirrels, and it's a 5-minute. I found Rocky lying in the grass when he was just a baby, and I raised him, and now he's always on my shoulder. And it's a woman, generally what looks to be an overweight, lonely woman, and she's got this rat on her shoulder with these horrifying claws, and this thing is like, it's a wild animal, so it's like totally demanding, oh, look, he likes to play around. It's like, no, he's trashed your house. But you look at it, it's like 1.2 million views. So,
it works. Well, it's the cuteness factor. That's why all of those grifters with animal welfare and save the world bullshit, they will always put animals with big eyes, baby eyes. Nobody is ever going to raise money to save the world with, say, a Komodo dragon
or a jellyfish
or a jellyfish. No, it's gotta be. And some jellyfish are so fucking beautiful, by the way.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. You know that all jellyfish are Democrats, right?
Well, they're colonial animals. They're like a colony. So it's
no. They're the only animal on Earth that does not have a brain and shits through the mouth.
There we go.
Definitely a Democrat. And that's true, by the way. No brain, and anything that comes out of the mouth is shit. Excellent. But no, they're beautiful. They're absolutely gorgeous, but they're not going to fundraise out of it.
No.
Squirrels, on the other hand, being a rodent, squirrel is nothing but a rat with a fancy tail.
Well, we used to have squirrels here. We had a squirrel that sounded just like a goddamn chicken. It would be up in the tree and it would be looking down, going buck, 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 buck. And it was just like, of course, this place is the gateway to hell, where we have chicken squirrels. I didn't know that they made noises like that. But.
No, the ones that I have are more the chipping kind. I have a couple living on a tree right in front of my house, and I would go. When I go to the porch or something, I always take some nuts with me, and all I have to do is shake the jar, and the little fuckers come running, and every now and then, I give them, like a walnut,
mm-hmm.
and it's the funniest fucking thing. They don't know what to do with a fucking walnut. It isn't like an oak nut. They look at it, and it's like they're carrying a little ball, very cute, very friendly. They can be a nuisance on occasion. That I remember at the City Museum in New York. It's on Fifth Avenue and 116th or thereabouts. 111th. There's a city museum that most people don't know it even exists. And it's a fantastic place to learn about the city. And they have this huge collection of photographs. And, all the photographs in Central Park in the late 1800s, early 1900s, you see people walking their squirrels with just as if they were walking a dog,
Wow.
And it seems they were like one of the most popular pets in New York at the time. And I can see why. And then some brainiac decided that, so much attention on the squirrels may drive them to extinction. Squirrels. They reproduce like rats or rabbits. There is no way to drive them into extinction. They're going to be here when the last man dies. But they came out with this, and they made it against the law to have a squirrel in the city of New York and eventually in the state of New York. Then in most of the country, with those laws to prevent people from having exotic animals, it's a squirrel, asshole. There's nothing exotic about it.
Well, how did they find out about Peanut?
Oh, because the owner used to post all kinds of videos of him with Peanut, because he apparently, I don't know of him, But the videos that I saw, apparently he was raising money and he was rescuing animals. He had a couple of rescue horses. He rescued the what you might call it, um, Fred,
Raccoon.
the raccoon. And so same thing, he found a raccoon. And I know a lot of people who have animals like these rescues, and then the animals I used to have in Buenos Aires province, you have no idea. Uh, but the thing is, you rescue the animal, you save it, and then they just stick around. No big deal, no harm done. But somebody saw the video of this guy with Peanut, the squirrel. How can he have a squirrel? It is verboten. And the jackbooted little fuck actually went to a judge, probably another Democrat, we're talking New York here, and showed up in the house of this guy with a search warrant. I mean, not a knock on the door. Do you have a squirrel? You can't have a squirrel. If you still have the squirrel tomorrow, we're going to have to find you. No, they went with a fucking search warrant. Apparently, they harassed his wife over her immigration status. Number one, it's his wife. So even if she was a Latvian, just fresh out of overstaying her visa, it's still her wife. There is a waiver for this.
Well, since when did New York give a shit about immigration status?
Well, obviously not. And by the way, yes, it is illegal to have a squirrel. It is also illegal to have a million assholes living in hotels on the state's largesse without a right to be in this country. But hey, what the fuck? Who's taking a look at this? They took the animals. After several hours of searching every nook and cranny in the house, they took the raccoon and the squirrel. And then they proceeded to kill them both because, in order to test them for rabies, they have to be dead.
Yeah, you have to cut off their heads.
Give me a break. It is beyond stupid. And people, ironically, as it's usually the case, people are reacting to the squirrel emotionally in ways they don't react to the kids raped by P. Diddy.
Or the kids raped by illegal Mexicans and illegal Chileans,
Right.
illegal Uruguayans.
Or Venezuelans or whatever
It's always been the case. It's always been the case. If you post a video of a child being beaten, it'll get plenty of outrage. But if you post a video of a dog being beaten, it'll get 10 times the outrage of the child video.
I don't know. It's fine. They're cute. They're whatever. But on the other hand, whatever it takes. If people get riled up with squirrels, let's give them squirrels. What the heck? I'm not going to live or die on the subject, except to say that sending the Gestapo to turn your house upside down because, oh my God, you have a squirrel. It's a good commentary on the sad state of affairs in democratic states.
Shows where their priorities are.
Yeah. And, it's okay. I can understand there may be need of these laws. Even if there is no need for the law, there is the law. You don't like it, change it. But you tell him to dispose of a fucking animal within a week or be fined.
Mm-hmm.
There are a number of ways of doing this in a somewhat civilized manner. What these people did is insane.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, but we know we have no rights in democratic America.
Mm-mm.
We know that they don't care for our Fourth or Fifth Amendment rights any more than they do for our First or Second. So we really can't be too surprised, can we? Oh, a lot of people are misanthropes. It explains the popularity of the pro-abortion position in this country. No, it doesn't. They don't hate mankind. They hate blacks.
True.
There's a difference. They're not misanthropes. They're racist fucks. And okay, Thomas.
Yes.
Before I go on the last spiel, because holy crap, we're overstayed again.
Okay.
Any subject that you think we should have brought and we haven't?
I don't think so. I think we covered the election, we covered the Middle East, and we covered a little bit of Ukraine. Not much has changed in Ukraine except the North Koreans being poured into the meat grinder, and
And pretty soon into the blender.
yeah. Oh,
yeah.
The North Koreans, in exchange for the Russians, no one's quite sure what's happening because the North Koreans are being uniformed. They're being uniformed and as Russians, and they claim the survivor said that they didn't have any weapons really, but North Korea is sending rations to the Russians, and a Russian soldier said that they got these cans of sliced meat, and they used their phone translator, and it said it was dog meat, and like he pitched a fit, dog meat. Who are these people? So the North Koreans are sending canned dog meat to the Russians in thanks for something.
Well, you should tell the Russian it's better the dog than you.
True.
Because this guy is going to eat meat.
Yeah.
Where he comes from, he doesn't give a shit. God. It's going to be interesting. I don't know what the end game for North Korea is in this shit. Because they cannot possibly get anything worth a damn thing. Except perhaps, maybe some missile technology in exchange for a few superfluous lives. Trying to put yourself into the minds of the little shit. But anyway, we're going to see what happens there. Tuesday, my friend, our election season is over.
Thank God.
Do you think you could survive another week of this shit?
I am done. I just want it over. And then of course we'll have to live through the final dying, sputtering months of the Biden administration. But
but I for one won't give a shit anymore. It's. I know that whatever the lame duck does, it's not gonna fly.
Yeah.
He's gonna name everybody and their families, every political appointee into civil service position. I hope that the first thing that Trump does is undo all of the appointments in the past 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And let him fighting in the courts for the next 20 years. I don't care. It's but that is going to be a subject for our next conversation. Hopefully, even Arizona will have their returns published by the time we meet next Saturday. Looking forward to discussing it with you. Just for everybody else as well. Tomorrow we have the God's meet, and Tuesday we're going to have an open session of the VIP room. We're going to have a couple of guests, some blast from the past like Comrade Fudge. We're going to watch the results come in real time. Last time we saw all the shit that the Democrats said never happened, like Fulton County closing down shop and sending everybody home because the water main broke and we had to evacuate the building. And no sooner had everybody left that they started counting again, but just the Democrats. And then they blocked the view so nobody could see what they were doing. But that never happened. It was, of course, on live TV, and we were broadcasting it and commenting on it, but it never happened. We're going to do this again, hopefully not to see that kind of shit again. I will be furious if it does. I'm going into this fully hopeful that Trump is going to lick it, that he's going to get somewhere between 290 and 316 electors and comfortably be elected. If by something I cannot foresee, the Democrats manage to cheat the shit out of this one and put that brainless, classless piece of crap in the White House. And if you want to know why I say classless piece of crap, you have to see the video of Cardi B endorsing her.
Oof.
And they actually paid her for that. That is classless, vacuous, empty, brainless trash. I never heard this speech before, and I never will again. Am I exaggerating? Do you think I got her?
Well, you know what her most famous song is, don't you?
I don't know. Fuck me in the morning.
It's called WAP, which stands for Wet Ass Pussy.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, classy.
Isn't it just the classiest thing you've ever heard in your life?
Oh God, yes. No, it jives perfectly well with the shit I saw today. The other piece of shit crap, good for nothing, is Jennifer Lopez. Mm-hmm. I keep sending people naked pictures of her with P. Diddy in a party, because that tells you the shit this woman knows and had no problem living with.
Mm-hmm.
And they're using this as a referent.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about the shame? What about the Bush daughter? Like these people are out of their
Barbara. I don't know. Maybe she's upset with daddy. Maybe she has daddy issues.
No, but it's out of all the Republicans you could choose, you're choosing people who rightly or wrongly have a terrible reputation and are going to do nothing but harm you. You know?
Yeah. Barbara is the one that they found drunk as a skunk and drugged up out of her senses in Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
One day. She's a girl with problems and daddy issues. No question about that. fucker, but not the way she likes it. I hope we can deliver from this nightmare on Tuesday night, says Movie Time Blues. And Alice, thank you so much for your contribution. And with that, we're going to have then Quad Meet tomorrow night at 10:30 p.m. And at 9:30 p.m., we're going to start the VIP room opened to members and non-members so that we have kind of like a telethon waiting for to see if we can go to sleep knowing that President Trump is back in the Oval Office. I so wish we could do that. And having said all of this, thank you for your contributions. Thank you to all of those who have contributed through the chat. Thank you to those who contribute directly to the channel, to our members, and those who will drop a buck or two when we go on demand. And that's it. Thomas, do you have a last word for our friends?
Off scouring.
Off scouring. Excellent. Thank you so much. And well, I'll see you next week, and I'll see everybody else tomorrow night, unless, of course, you want to join us on Tuesday night. But we'll see what the week brings. Take care, guys. Thank you.